Tim's News Explosion. 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 Hello, everybody, and welcome to this special post-federal budget edition of Tim's News Explosion on this Thursday, the 31st of March, 2022. It's April Fool's Day tomorrow. We are live on the Wilms Front YouTube, D Live, and Odyssey channels, as well as on the interactive Entropy software, where you can ask me a direct question and also send through a support the production of the show. Hello to all my regulars in the chat. Colin Snavnik, great to see you there. It is 8:30 p.m. here in Melbourne, Victoria, where last night it was the memorial service for Australian cricket legend Shane Warne, who, of course, a few weeks back now tragically died at the age of 52 of a suspected sudden heart attack in Thailand. So at the memorial, the renaming of the Southern Stand in his honor was officially unveiled, the renaming of the stand. The memorial was emceed by Eddie Maguire and had live eulogies by his family and personal and celebrity friends, which I thought was very well presented at the ground. But I wasn't a fan personally of the video messages from celebrities like Kylie Minogue and Hugh Jackman. It sort of gave me This Is Your Life vibes. You remember that show, except in this situation, the person whose life it was about has tragically passed. And there are also because it was promoted that Elton John, Ed Sheeran, and Robbie Williams were going to perform, but it was all video. It was all videoed in the performances, so it wasn't really a live performance at the memorial. It doesn't have the same specialness. Also, during the memorial service, another great Australian died, Ernie Carroll, who was Aussie Ostrich on Hey Hey It's Saturday. Ernie was aged 92, so he had a good innings, and obviously for the first 20 years of Hey Hey, he was one part of the duo that made the show with host Daryl Summers. So a death of another icon, but it was a life that was well lived. At Warnie's memorial service, Dan Andrews couldn't attend because he'd contracted COVID, despite being triple vaccinated and super careful. Neither could the sports minister of Victoria, Martin Bakula. He also had COVID on the day of the memorial. And also the leader of the Victorian Greens, Samantha Ratnam, also has COVID, obviously, despite being triple vaccinated and being really careful. I'm not sure if she's triple vaccinated, but obviously to sit in Parliament, you've got to be at least double dosed. Samantha Ratnam, she recently was at the kids' climate strike, so that could be a huge super spreader event, despite all of them wearing masks. And opposition leader Matthew Guy is in isolation because one of his sons has COVID. So all three leaders of the Victorian major political parties are all out either with COVID or in isolation. And we're probably better that there is less politicians active meddling our lives. I mean, it was absolute bliss for the 3 months last year when Dan had his stair fall. Obviously, it wasn't bliss for him, it was very painful, but it was great just not having him around. Scott Morrison was present at the memorial and got booed. Apparently, he forgot that he was attending since he previously agreed to an interview with Lee Sales that night, because it's the night after the federal budget. So apparently he double booked and forgot that he had to travel to Melbourne and couldn't go into the studio in Sydney with Lee Sales. I'm sure it had nothing to do with outgoing Liberal Senator Concetta Fierravanti-Wells unloading on his character after she was dumped from a winnable position on the New South Wales Senate coalition ticket. There was a vote of delegates, and on the coalition ticket, the second position goes to the Nationals. Foreign Minister Marise Payne got number 1. Jim Molan got number 3 for the Liberals, and she was relegated to number 4. She's been in the Senate for 17 years. She is a through and through social conservative. She's a woman of high conservative principles and values. And I'll play a segment of her speech where the full 10 minutes has been widely published online, where she basically accuses Scott Morrison of being a fake Christian, fake conservative, and also delves into the circumstances he got pre-selection for Cook, and the Liberal candidate who was initially won pre-selection was forced out. That's when Morrison was put in, and Concetta Fierravanti-Wells basically hinted that he was he played the race card in that process, because the initial winner was Lebanese, and she claimed that Morrison allegedly said we can't have a person of Lebanese descent in the seat of Cook, because it was 18 months after the Cronulla riots. But I'll play some of her 10-minute speech, and also afterwards One Nation leader Pauline Hanson concurring, and outgoing former Country Liberal Party Senator Sam McMahon concurring.
This government...
He is adept at running with the foxes and hunting with the hounds, lacking the moral compass and having no conscience. His actions conflict with his portrayal as a man of faith. He has used his so-called faith as a marketing advantage. It is his way or the highway, an autocrat, a bully who has no moral compass. There is a putrid stench of corruption emanating from the New South Wales division of the Liberal Party, and I look forward to the day when Hawke will be required to give evidence under oath to explain his corrupt conduct. In my public life, I have met ruthless people. Morrison tops the list, followed closely by Hawke. Morrison is not fit to be Prime Minister, and Hawke certainly is not fit to be a minister. They have lost faith in the party. They want to leave. They don't like Morrison and they don't trust him. They continue to despair at our prospects at the next federal election, and they blame Morrison for this. Our members do not want to help in the upcoming election.
The fallout from this bitter factional brawl over New South Wales pre-selections comes in many forms. As the Senator said, it poses problems of rank-and-file manpower on the ground during the looming election campaign. It means the government still has to nominate candidates in some seats, meaning it will be difficult to call an election for at least some days. And of course, it derailed the budget sales task, as the PM found himself fending off questions about this attack, which he suggested was simply bitterness on the Senator's part over being dumped from a safe spot on the New South Wales Senate ticket. But Scott Morrison's day was about to get even worse.
He is a bully, and I back the Senator up completely with that. He is a bully because I have experienced it myself. He's a man, you do it my way or there's no way.
It seems it's not a man thing, a faction thing, a party thing, but it certainly can be a political thing. I think of the premature death of my colleague Kimberley Kitching, and one thing that haunts me is that so easily could have been me. We can honour her memory by not making this a political issue, but by fixing it. So politics is a better place, particularly for women.
Now, it was only Sam McMahon at the end who, well, you could argue played the gender card I noticed that Margot, my producer, in the comments said that the patriarchy and toxic masculinity is a real problem, and asked where are all the real men. Sam McMahon, she lost Country Liberal Party pre-selection for the Senate in the Northern Territory last year to Indigenous conservative activist Jacinta Price, and it was a really bitter pre-selection fight. And in the lead up, she was accused of being maggoted or drunk in a late night parliamentary sitting. This is from the Daily Mail. Footage shows her walking unsteadily and being spoken to by colleagues before leaving, and gives an alternative explanation. She denies the claims and said she was not coping with some sad personal news. But what all three of these female senators had in common is that they all voted to repeal the vaccine mandates and passports. Obviously, One Nation leader Pauline Hanson, it was her and Malcolm Roberts' private members bill before the Senate, and there were 5 coalition senators who crossed the floor to support it: Sam McMahon, Concetta Fierravanti-Wells, Jared Rennick, Alex Antic, and Matt Canavan. They all voted in support. And you've heard Scott Morrison again. This is why what Concetta Fierravanti-Wells said about his character was so devastating, because you have Scott Morrison say, I've never supported vaccine mandates and passports. That's all the states. I have nothing to do with it. And we have a completely voluntary vaccination program. I mean, he still pushes that crap. But you saw in that, it was what I put together was an edit of the ABC 7:30. They ran that story in place of Scott Morrison's scheduled interview there. Of course, if you cancel at the last minute because of a certain reason, they're going to do a story on that reason there. But what the full speech of Concetta Fierravanti-Wells went into is that pre-selections in New South Wales for the Liberal Party have been stalled for a year because Scott Morrison's, well, you could say proxy man on the New South Wales State Executive, Alex Hawke, has prevented plebiscites for pre-selections, and she alleges that this is because Alex Hawke knows that he would lose a member's ballot in his seat of Mitchell. And so what's happened, because it's all last minute, is that Scott Morrison and Dominic Perrottet, they want a federal intervention to install candidates, or them to pick candidates, the local members not have a say. And this was going to go to the High Court. And Scott Morrison was even going to use the Commonwealth Solicitor General in this internal Liberal Party dispute, this is pretty outrageous from Morrison. Connie Fierravanti-Wells also had a whack at Dominic Perrottet. She also had a whack at the Hillsong Church as well. It was what would you call a political bitch slapping of Morrison. And also on the same day, the High Court refused to hear the challenges to the federal Labor intervention in the Victorian branch. They still haven't, in Victoria, sorted out their Senate pre-selection. So the federal election will probably not be called this weekend because both Liberal and Labor still haven't decided who their candidates are, and this is why so many people are disillusioned with the major parties, and they're looking at alternatives such as Pauline Hanson's One Nation, the United Australia Party, the Great Australian Party, the Liberal Democrats. And all of this, of course, this political factional major party drama overset the federal budget on Tuesday night. But it was basically, to summarise, an attempt in an election year by the Morrison government to buy people's votes. They're hoping that the bribe is right, that when voters get to the ballot box, they'll re-elect them for another 3 years. And so it was called helping Australians with the cost of living. This was the bribe section here. So there was a new 420 cost of living tax offset for 10 million Australians. So I don't know why they picked the offset number 420. I don't know, were they high when they decided 420 would be the best number there for the budget bottom line. So they claim that eligible low and middle income earners will receive up to $1,500 for a single income household, $3,000 for dual income. And also there is the tax exempt $250 payment for 6 million Australians, including pensioners, welfare recipients, veterans, and eligible concession card holders. And then, of course, there is the temporary fuel excise relief. So it is reducing the fuel excise to 50% for 6 months. This will see excise and petrol cut from 44.2 cents per litre to 22.1 cents per litre. So it'll be for 6 months. So, of course, petrol prices will go back up after the election, after the voters have passed their judgment, and when they can't pass their judgment again for another 2.5 years. Wes Waldo says you should play Malcolm Roberts speaking in the Senate on his Facebook page. He is stirring the pot. Yes, I'd love to play that. I'd also love to play Alex Antic talking about the World Economic Forum, and also some of George Christensen's valedictory speech. But we are on YouTube, and YouTube doesn't like a lot of those truth bombs there. But obviously, I already mentioned in the Senate, Malcolm Roberts from One Nation and Alex Antic from the South Australian Liberals, both excellent, totally red-pilled, and they're going to be staying in the Senate. Pauline Hanson is up for re-election in the Senate, but sadly George Christensen, reason why it was a valedictory speech, because he is retiring, but he is certainly not going to be silent once he retires from politics. He is planning to go back to journalism. He's got his Nation First Substack and his videos as well. So we'll definitely hear more of him. And in his valedictory speech, he was very scathing on the lack of character and conviction. He basically said more people should be mavericks like me. This is what politics needs. So yes, the budget, yeah, pretty much all about trying to buy people's votes. Albo had his budget reply speech where he went through his usual critiques of the government. They've done nothing for 9 years, and also a big focus on improving aged care standards. He had a few zingers there. He wants to put the care back in aged care, and he's had a policy for 24/7 nurse on call in aged care. He said he wants to put the nurses back in nursing homes. So it reminds me of, Ned Flanders saying that as principal, he wanted to put the stew back in student. It was those type of zingers. But Bob Katter, he also did a mini budget budget reply on ABC News 24, and had some interesting, you would say, not just defense policy spending, but self-defense budget spending proposals.
Now, I would immediately move to providing a rifle for every single boy and girl too, if they want them, in an armoury in every single school in Australia. If that sounds extremist, that's what Israel does. That's what Finland does. That's what Sweden does.
But
that's what Switzerland does.
What would you call compulsory service?
No. All I'm saying is give them a rifle, right? Now, you know, a missile fortress wall, but most important of all, to have a secure fuel supply.
Yes, so Bob Cutter there advocating for Australian citizens to be armed for both national defence and self-defence there. But of course, Australians having firearms to defend themselves, that's very bad, and only sovereign citizen far-right extremists do that. But of course, it's okay for the people of Ukraine to have weapons, and for us to send them weapons to fight Russia. And we had Vladimir Zelensky address the Australian Parliament this evening, and Scott Morrison called him a lion of democracy, even though Zelensky, and you won't hear much of this in the mainstream media, has nationalized all the media in Ukraine and suspended all opposition parties because he wants the nation to speak with one voice. That's very free and democratic. And obviously this week we saw a current affair do a classic, one of their classic character hit pieces on the Aussie Cossack for supporting the Russian military operation. And Aussie Cossack, he featured also in a follow-up interview with the real Rakshan and Avi Yemeni as well. So you can see both parts of that as well. But more immediately in our region, we have the Solomon Islands in the Pacific. They're going to go ahead and sign this military deal with the Chinese Communist Party, People's Republic of China. They're both the same thing, in my opinion. And so it was leaked online last week. And so this would allow this what's it called? Framework agreement between the government of the People's Republic of China and government of Solomon Islands on security cooperation. It will open the door for Beijing to supply police, weapons, and even naval ships in the nation if requested by the Solomon's government. And so this is what the Prime Minister Manses Severus said: "We find it very insulting, Mr. Speaker, to be branded as unfit to manage our sovereign affairs." So basically saying that for Australia to not want a hostile forces military operations to be not too far from the Australian mainland, it's hurt his feelings. And we, of course, recall how the United States reacted to missiles in Cuba in 1962. It was a red line. But, Australia just, we don't like it. But, that's about it. And, of course, China is able to do this with its own foreign aid bribery in the Pacific, and they also do this in Africa. Former New Zealand Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters calls it checkbook diplomacy. Scott Morrison, he during his praise of Zelensky gave him another $25 million Australian taxpayer tip for the war in Ukraine. How about spending some of this? Well, it's not really foreign aid in our own Asia Pacific region, but it's investment in defense. We need to have better special relationships in our immediate region, because China is certainly buying a lot of special relationships around us. Australia can't do anything about it, yes, because we're too weak, and both militarily and also in character and strength. And we have CCP sympathizers in the major political parties. There's certainly more in the Labor Party, and we had earlier this month Bruce Haig write in the CCP Global Times that an Albanese government would be better for the People's Republic of China. And so we had this week conservative lobby group Advance Australia driving around Melbourne, vote Labor. CCP says vote Labor. It's a very, very, very clever, cheeky van to drive around, because like obviously there'll be some people who might actually think that it's a Labor one there, because it reminds me of 2007 when actually Labor drove around a truck which had John Howard saying Australian working families have never been better off. And there was cost of living pressures then, and people thought it was Howard bragging about, look how good I am, vote for me. And what is that? Neil Mitchell, when he was speaking about it, said, I don't believe the Chinese communists would be out telling people to vote Labor. They're more substantial than that. Well, it was in the Global Times. And what is it? Going down here, there was on the 3AW Facebook post that called Advance Australia's billboard a dirty trick. The most liked comment was from Chris, who wrote, "Is anyone really surprised? It's not a joke, but rather Victorian reality. Belt and Road deal has not been forgotten by China. They want it back." And of course, Scott Morrison is really terrible, but Elbow is super terrible. And of course, Penny Wong would be the foreign minister. She has CCP sympathies, and so does Christina Keneally. Well, in her campaign for Fowler, she keeps stumbling into CCP aligned community groups. Christina Keneally, to use another pun, she's certainly aiming to put the foul back in Fowler. Now, because this is the final sitting week before before the federal election will be called, Lydia Thorpe had another meltdown in the Senate with a question to the resources the minister representing the resources minister in the Senate, Bridget McKenzie.
This government is paying to destroy Gunai Sea country, my country, in Gippsland with the Golden Beach fracking project. Where did you get your consent from to frack my country?
Minister.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. President. Well, we are very lucky in this country that both state and federal governments over a long period of time have taken very seriously the need to have the right regulatory framework around the development of particularly gas-fired projects.
Order, Minister. On a point of order, Senator Thorpe.
Simple question, President. Who gave you consent to frack
Senator Thorpe.
Stop Gunai country
Senator
as a Gunai
Thorpe.
woman? Who gave you consent?
Senator Thorpe. Senator Thorpe, the minister was being directly relevant to the question. Minister, you have 45 seconds.
So at both a state and federal level, there are quite strict regulatory controls on both on a whole range of approvals that must be sought in terms of building these type of projects. But
Minister, Senator Thorpe on a point of order.
I'm a traditional owner of Gunai country. My mother is on the Elders Council.
Senator Thorpe.
Where did you get your consent?
Senator Thorpe, that is not a point of order. Minister, you have 33 seconds.
And Lydia Thorpe actually posted this on her social. She was proud of this meltdown of hers, and well, she can frack off at the next election. Lydia Thorpe, she's up for re-election as the Greens lead Senate candidate in Victoria. I'll certainly be putting her as low on my voting Senate voting paper as possible. She must still be quite shaken up from her. What is it? She claimed that she was racially profiled at the Canberra airport by some luggage scales at the Virgin Australia terminal because her carry-on luggage weighed more than what was allowed, and she was told that she'd have to take something out, otherwise she couldn't take it on. And apparently security was called next, and she Lydia Thorpe believes that she was racially profiled, and I didn't know that airport scales could be racist. Maybe we need the Australian Federal Police to investigate the racist scales at the Canberra airport. And she is Lydia Thorpe still concerned about the threat of far-right extremism because of that video by the warriors of the convict resistance when they burnt the Aboriginal flag because it had a sign in the background which said Lydia Thorpe Abo Hor. She criticised the AFP for failing to act fast enough, telling NITV in February she feared for her personal safety and that of a daughter. Does she fear for airport scales as well? Does she fear for scales in general? And this is part of a piece for the ABC that the AFP has created a new task force ahead of the federal election to protect politicians, candidates. So it mentions here that Andrew Lee, who's the member for Canberra, the ACT Magistrate Court granted me a personal protection order this week. I won't be divulging details, but people should be aware of the way that the environment is changing for MPs. Never imagined this when I got into politics in 2010, and also mentions that 2 people were charged earlier in March over alleged threats they made online against Christina Keneally. So yes, it was announced by Karen Andrews earlier this month that there was going to be a new fund to look into threats against politicians. And Christina Keneally is also, she's on the joint parliamentary committee on security and intelligence, which had the hearings in April last year as part of their public hearings into their inquiry into extremist movements and radicalism in Australia. Now, despite the fact that it was supposed to report to the Minister for Home Affairs in April 2021, it's been a year, there's been no report by the committee. I don't know if it's going to be dumped maybe late on Friday night, but I'd be interested to see if this is going to be published before the election, what it recommends. I thought maybe it was going to be published this week to coincide with the release of the Nick McKenzie Stand documentary revealed neo-Nazis amongst us, because I did my review of that on Monday's program. You'll be pleased that to hear that I've cancelled my Stand subscription now because I can live without the nanny and Will and Grace. In other news on the pandemic front, it was interesting that just because we still have masks in various places. In the Senate, masks weren't required by senators, but in the House of Reps, they were required. So in Josh Frydenberg's budget and budget reply, all the backbenchers had masks on as well. So it's really weird. It's apparently the House of Reps, is COVID more dangerous in the House of Representatives than the Senate? The House of Reps should probably be called the House of Mask Perverts, probably. I saw that Tanya Plibersek and Terry Butler had the full N95s on, which are called the bird beak masks. So in South Australia, good things, good COVID rollbacks continue even under the new Labor Premier Peter Malonakis. So Police Commissioner Grant Stevens said that teachers and passenger transport workers in South Australia can return to the job if they're not jabbed, but will be forced to wear masks and undertake daily testing. So still this sort of nudge public health policy that, well, if you don't get vaccinated, you've still got to wear a muzzle and poke your nose and deep throat yourself. And also, bizarrely this week, we had that health authorities in Australia adding children aged 0 to 4 to the nation's vaccine injury compensation claim scheme. And they're not eligible for vaccination, but Pfizer, of course, is working on a vaccine for 0 to 4-year-olds. They already have got theirs approved for 5 to 11-year-olds here in Australia, which is being rolled out. So Mr. Hunt elucidated his belief that vaccination against COVID-19 remains the most effective way to prevent severe disease and hospitalizations and deaths. More than 56 million COVID vaccines have been administered around Australia. More than 95% of the population of age over 16 have had at least one dose. The government is investing more than $1 billion over 2 years to ensure continued access to safe and effective vaccines for all eligible people, because we've had the ATAGI Vaccine Advisory Group urge older Australians to get their winter dose, or their 4th dose or 2nd booster. So that's it for this special Tim's News Explosion. Now, there won't be a Tim's News Explosion next Monday because I've got a Wilms Front double interview week. On Monday, I've got John Steinoff of the Human Rights Law Alliance. He's the principal lawyer there. It's a Christian-based legal defense organization affiliated with the Australian Christian Lobby. So I'm going to ask him about the various freedom of religion, conscience cases they've been fighting and what is on their mind in the upcoming federal election. Then on Thursday, I've got Anthony Lev of the Australian Freedom Rally and Melbourne Freedom Rally to speak about also what activism the Australian Freedom Movement is planning for the federal election. I'm having a red wine booster now. Well, what is that? There's obviously there's your 2 standard shots per day, but a lot of people maybe have a booster shot of standard drink of alcohol as well. But yes, and also coming up after that, I'll be also speaking with Augusto Zimmerman because he, like Concetta Fierravanti-Wells, doesn't believe Scott Morrison is a proper conservative and has published a book called Deconstructing ScoMo. And I'm also planning to speak with Damien Richardson of Cafe Locked-Out, who's running as an independent candidate for the Senate. Published his interview with Richard Wollstonecroft on the Unshackled YouTube channel. There'll be more reports from Tiger Mountain with Richard Wollstonecroft published shortly. Solo reports. That was a special extended interview report that Richard did with Damien, because they sort of go way back, those two, in the film and television industry. And tomorrow, Trad Tasman talk again with Stephen Berry at the later time of 7 p.m. Melbourne time, 9 p.m. Auckland time. And also, don't forget this weekend, if you're in New South Wales, Victoria, ACT, and Tasmania and South Australia, to push your clocks now back because daylight savings ends. 420 boosters is more safe and effective. Mel, you're in Queensland, will be in the same time zone. Speaking of up there in Queensland, just released from Queensland prison today is Philip Simpson, known as Filthy, who was again imprisoned for his colourful political language, but is back out now, which is good. He was previously a guest on Wilms front, so it'll be interesting to see what how his time. Well, it's his second stint in prison. Another political prisoner who is still behind bars is Theresa Van Lyshout over that alleged AFP impersonation plot. Apparently she was part of this. They were importing fake AFP badges and were going to arrest the politicians. So she's still behind bars in South Australia. We haven't heard anything from her. Take care, everyone. Have a good night. Hope you don't get too fooled tomorrow for April Fool's Day, but it seems like you just hope the last 2 years was just a 2-year-long April Fool's Day joke, because the world is just so full of farce at the moment. Good night, everybody. Tim's News Explosion. 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 Tim's News Explosion.